Hey guys, thanks so much for visiting Discovering Wildlife with Rusty Johnson. That's me. Now, if we haven't met, for decades I've dedicated my life to protection, preservation, and education of all types of wildlife, endangered species, in the environment. I really started when I was very, very young. It was kind of, I want to say, in my blood. My first recollection of really loving wildlife was seeing a dead rabbit that my cat brought up on the front porch. And even though it was dead, it just looked absolutely perfect. It was just sitting there nice and soft and beautiful, still warm. And I was only 5 years old at the time. So my mom went and get a bag and to put it in so we could bury it. By the time she got back, I had my cat's rhinestone collar on the neck. I had a leash on there. And it was my pet, really. I had no idea about things decomposing at the time. So she said, "You can't have it. This thing's going to rot and get gross." So we had this ceremony and funeral for it. But that's when I really, really, fell in love with the natural world. Through then, I got my first snake. My sister was allergic to anything furry, so that really helped the fact I couldn't have anything else at the time. So I got a snake. And that too, she really didn't want me to have too much. She was nervous. She didn't like snakes too much. But I kind of eased my way into it, tricked her into it, actually. She said, "If you want a snake, this is what you have to do. You have to remember where it is when you find one. Come back and get your dad. And if it isn't poisonous, you got it. You can have it." And I thought it was a great idea. But see, what she was thinking was that, it's wintertime. I live in upstate New York. There wasn't going to be any snake that's sitting out in the snow. And plus, even if there was, by the time my father went and got it, it would be gone. And plus, my father never caught a snake in his life. So she figured she had all her bases covered there. But about 3 months later, we go to a pet shop to get a goldfish for my sister. And it was like the Holy Grail, man. I walked in and there they were, this just tank just full of garter snakes. And I saw it and I was like, "Mom, there's snakes. There's Dad. They're not poisonous." And with her head spinning, walk out with Sam the snake and a whole lot of goldfish to feed the snake. But that was really, really good for me because I got the idea how incredible these animals were. So for the next decade, really, living in upstate New York, I was out in the woods every single day, exploring what I could, catching what I could. And that just kind of steamrolled into many other things. In my teens, I became a falconer. I got my first red-tailed hawk. If you're not familiar with falconry, falconry was a way of hunting before gunpowder was invented. It began about 4,000 years ago. And started doing that. And I'd have to say it's pretty obvious I became obsessed with birds of prey. Had my red-tailed hawk. That one actually, within like 2 months of training it, I had it free flying and everything. And one day I just watched it stay up in a tree and just looked at me and did nothing. Looked at me like I was a stranger, flew off, never came back. So I ended up trapping another one. I got the license from the state of New York to trap another one, and I did. And then I got an owl. Then I got a few more owls. Then I got some falcons. And then I got some vultures. And then I got some eagles. And then even got a condor, largest bird of prey in the world, 10-foot wingspan. Then I kind of graduated from Sam the garter snake. When I first got Sam, I was very happy to have him. It was a snake. Beggars can't be choosers. But I did want a cobra. So through the years, I did expand and got a couple 100-pound pythons, a few vipers, and got my cobra too. Had this gigantic menagerie of wildlife. But you know what? I never considered any of them as pets. These guys were ambassadors. And they were ambassadors of their wild cousins. So I really just destined to teach the world about them as much as I could. So I would travel to schools for 20 years, doing sometimes about 300 schools a year. And that really opened up other things to where I would speak at the American Museum of Natural History, speak at the New York State Museum, speak at Princeton University, and it just rolled from there. And through my years of lecturing, it really opened up many different opportunities for me. It gave me the opportunity to work with tigers and bears and lions and even elephants. I was also a falcon trainer for the magician David Copperfield. I was a wildlife handler for Jim Fowler from Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom for many years, and he became a close friend as well. I'd have to say I think it was about over 3,000 school presentations and university presentations I've done. And then that expanded to some TV stuff. Conan O'Brien.
The one with the glove on is Rusty Johnson, but look at this. This is one of the largest soaring birds in the world. Ready?
All right, yeah. Aha, okay. This isn't fun anymore.
That's it.
Late Night with David Letterman.
Are you Rusty Johnson? Yes.
Yeah, there's always a possibility in New York City. It's just a guy with raw chicken meat shows up and is standing in your office. Rusty Johnson over there. Oh, there he goes again. He's just diving various. Hawk expert Rusty Johnson.
When I started doing my lectures, you learn about these animals, you live with them. I had the pleasure of raising owls from babies, raising condors from babies, and hatching out falcons and hatching out snakes and even some alligators I forgot to mention. And it also gave me the bug to travel because I wanted to be able to talk directly about what these animals are like in their natural habitat. So I first went to Africa. I did a 3,000-mile trek through 5 countries in southern Africa. And that's when, my African eagles that I had, I was able to say, oh yeah, I've seen these in Zimbabwe, I've seen these in Namibia or in Botswana, and studied them. So I really wanted to get that experience. Then I traveled to Montserrat, which is in the West Indies. What was happening there was this volcanic island. 3 times a week, this volcano was going off, decimating the environment. And there was animals on there, obviously, and they were dying off. The Montserrat oriole was one of them. It was a small passerine bird that 80% of its habitat was killed off by this volcano. So I went down there to study that. And I think what really, though, totally changed my life was when I decided to go to the Amazon rainforest in Peru. As soon as my boots hit the ground, I fell absolutely in love with this place. It was like living in a lizard cage, really. It was so humid. It is so hot. You could smell the charcoal in the air that the locals are cooking with. And it was just a new world to me, and a world I felt comfortable in. Very long story short, since then, I have spent almost the last 20 years traveling to the Amazon. I've led 35 expeditions there to guide, to film television, and to even give malaria nets to kids that live in the jungle. Still 3,000 kids a day die of malaria. And these little mosquito nets that you could put over their beds at night save their life. So when I travel around and do my wildlife stuff, I like to bring those along to give a little extra to them. Connected with the wildlife, I try to stay very close to the indigenous communities because they're the people that have that boots on the ground that need to take care of it. These wild animals live exactly where they live. They're that first mode of defense. So I try to connect with them a lot. I even delivered a baby in the Amazon by the light of a tiny little candle. As well, I'm the main character and a producer on Travel Channel's Hotel Amazon.
My name is Rusty. For the last 10 years, I've been coming down to the Amazon. She's pissed. And for doodle-those wildlife like me, there's no better place to be.
I've consulted for National Geographic, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, A&E, Dateline, all those guys. And I develop shows right now that are really based on wildlife or adventure. I'm married to a third-generation shaman. We have a wonderful life together, and you'll meet her a lot. And it's been both our passions to go around and protect the wildlife there, educate the locals on what they need to do to protect what they have and why they need to protect it. And it's a beautiful time. The kids in many villages end up naming me Tarzan Santa Claus. So my goal here at Patreon is to really create a community of the public, as well as school teachers, students, homeschoolers, and provide them with content, mostly video production, of wildlife from the things that I have filmed through the decades. I have decades worth, hundreds of hours. Not only film that would be considered TV stuff, but even just behind the scenes of growing up, raising a condor, raising falcons, living with snakes. And all my travels now, from going not only to the Amazon, where I live with my wife when we're not in the COVID times. Right now I'm in upstate New York, but that can be interesting as well. I'll show you why in a minute. So we'll travel to the Amazon and shoot all my films there. And all these videos are actually going to be only for Patreon members. I really want to create this community that is interested in a production quality that is entertaining as well as educational. I have to say, what you see in television sometimes, we kind of cater to sensationalism and contriving things. And I really want to provide nice short films, nothing that's too crazy long because we all are very busy and I know that. Aside from that, behind the scenes. I'll tell you, some of the greatest moments are really behind the scenes, especially when you're dealing with wildlife and you're exploring. You never know what's going to happen from 1 minute to the next. So there's always something going on. And the beauty is I constantly live with a camera either in my pocket or around my neck. So you'll get all the behind the scenes footage of my travels and seeing what I can find out there and bringing it back to you guys. On top of that too, I'd say I don't want to say it's a podcast per se, but it really isn't. What I want to provide you is I feel something much, much better than a podcast. Is I've always been asked to document my adventures through the past decades, and I've fallen behind on that. I like doing, so I much rather be out running around doing stuff than been sitting at a desk writing about what I once did. So I've got a backlog of so many adventures from all different places, and I got to catch up on that. Some people are interested in doing documentaries about it. Some want me to write a book about it. My book Twilight of the Wild is kind of just a first part of my life. That was pre-Amazon. That was the Africa days. So there's so much from that time up till now that I got to catch up on. Sitting down writing it is hard for me sometimes. I get antsy. What I am doing right now is just recording audio. Typically at the end of the day, when the day's over, everybody's asleep, I kind of like to have a little bit of time to myself, sit back and relax, throw on the recorder, and just reminisce and think of all the craziness that has happened through the years and get it on tape. For two reasons. One, because it's wanted for some content, and I know it's going to be very educational, funny, and entertaining. But also, too, from now on, I am super dedicated to this Patreon community to where I have so many more adventures under my belt. So I'd like to actually get all the past adventures at least on tape so I don't forget about it. And also I don't need to remember it. It's all there because we got some really good fresh stuff that we're going to be doing soon. And that's going to be behind the scenes. It's not going to be that's why I wasn't sure about using the word podcast, because it's not going to be like, hey, welcome to the, it's not going to be that. Sometimes I may be exhausted and I might not, act very happy as a host, and I'll just be kind of talking to the microphone. But it's real, and that's what I want to get with all my footage and all my content. It's real, not contrived. And you also learn about what it's like to be an explorer. People see the glamour. It can be extremely glamorous, traveling around, spending time in the Amazon, working with all the wildlife and that. But there's a lot of stuff that is not glamorous. There's a lot of stress involved with it. Imagine what it's like to live and take care of like 9 endangered species by yourself. Not with a zoo behind you, not with a giant budget paying for everything. Just like you and these wild animals. And it can be extremely stressful. But I'd like to tell everybody and let them know, because again, a lot of people just see the glamour in it. And of course, the behind the scenes footage. As I said, my wife's a third generation shaman. Not only does she do healing work throughout the Amazon, when we're up here in upstate New York, she helps out a lot of people and we do a lot of healing work up here. I'll help her out, and then she helps me out with the wildlife end of stuff. And between the two, we have a pretty crazy life. Matter of fact, I'll even show you. This is one of the crazy things that just recently happened. I got a phone call from the police department not too long ago, and they said that there was a snake loose up here in upstate New York. Yeah, this one loose. I'm like, oh, cool, let me go and see what it is. Figured it was going to be just a black snake, a black rat snake, at most maybe a copperhead, something like that. To my surprise, I drive up and I walk up to this old lady's porch, and sitting on this old lady's porch is this little dude here. Where are you? On that head. Oh, that's the tail. Where's your head? Oh, there's the head. He's spunky. There we are. So this was sitting on an old lady's porch. This is a Demeral's boa from Madagascar, and it was sitting on an old lady's porch in upstate New York. So you never know what the heck's going to happen. And this is one of the many of the weird calls that I get sometimes of animals just showing up someplace. So it's always an interesting time, to say the least, whether I'm here in upstate New York or down in the Amazon. Now, my dream goal for this Patreon community is that if we grow it enough, we work together enough, we can travel to other areas throughout the world and film the wildlife there. Again, just like I do in the Amazon, work with the indigenous communities to show them what they can do to protect the wildlife that they have, and get some fantastic educational content to bring back here and provide for, as I say, the general public, schools, teachers, and then we can just keep on growing and perhaps roll it into to some feature films. There's a lot of possibilities here, and I'm open to them all. Not only that, I like to do every month just a hangout. You know, we can all go on a video call, do a Zoom, and you guys can ask all the questions you want. Just kind of get to know each other, and even throw some ideas around what future projects we can all do together. I'm a very accessible person, so feel free to contact me. Ask me all the questions you want, offer some advice. I really want to take this to a big level, that we can provide some really fantastic educational and entertaining content. We can also then connect with the indigenous communities to help them realize how wonderful and how special the animals that they live amongst are, and what they can do to protect them, and just have a great time of doing it, and learn as much as we both can. That's the beauty about exploring. I learn every day, and I like to pass that on to you guys. So please check out my Patreon. We have many different tiers, and offering some really good gifts too. A lot of my photographs as well, some of my paintings. If you have any questions, contact me. I really hope that you want to join me on this new fantastic adventure. I hope to connect.